All right, well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, entrepreneurs without limits, and welcome to our sessions, ongoing sessions, on your code of life and living. This is a tutorial, a pre-publication dissertation, if you will, on the mindset of life, your code of life and living. So today we are in session 9, and what we're going to be talking about are behaviors and consequences. And these are very important because our behaviors and consequences are what give rise to reinforcement of values and beliefs. And that's what we deal with the vast majority of the time when we are challenged in life. We're challenged by beliefs and values that are running below our conscious level many times. And so consequently, to overcome the limits that we impose on ourselves, we have to challenge those beliefs and values, to install those that serve us and serve others, and to remove the ones that have long since ceased to serve us and move forward in life. And to do that, we have to be very, very careful about our behaviors, because behaviors produce consequences. And consequences, of course, are what oftentimes create the emotional significance in our life. And that emotional significance can be positive or it can be negative. So we have to be pretty careful about what we do there. So in the prior episodes, we've kind of marched through the process of getting up to this point to the category of what I call attitude. Attitude is a collective category that includes values and beliefs, feelings, thoughts, behaviors, and consequences. And these are the things that we deal with in the human condition. These are the things that very oftentimes make it most difficult for people to grasp mindset. And as a review, mindset, in the definition of what we do in this community, mindset is your life operating system. It gives you clarity of vision, purpose, thought, action, and results. It facilitates and adapts to change and promotes growth in multiple areas of your life. Those three modules, clarity, change, and growth, are cyclical. They move through a process, through a sequence. In that process, in that sequence, you gain clarity, which produces more change in your life, which produces more growth. More growth increases your clarity, and so on and on into life it goes. Now, one of the things that absolutely contributes to clarity is getting your beliefs and values nailed down, getting those understood, getting those appreciated, getting those put into a congruent set of behaviors, okay? And as we've said in prior episodes, your values and beliefs bubble to the top in the form of feelings. Feelings give rise to thoughts. Now, there is a phenomenon that is oftentimes disputed, and that is, do thoughts give rise to feelings? And if you do the research, you're going to find that there's a camp on both sides. But here's what I have found. When you integrate the heart and the mind into the equation, then you add the intelligence of the universe, which we are all part of. That may sound a little heady, but bear with me here. What ends up happening is you have a multi-variable existence. In other words, there's a lot of things going on of which you are not aware. Awareness is always an objective for us. But no matter how aware we are, there are still many things going on below our ability to see, to hear, to comprehend. And when you integrate the heart, the mind, and the intelligence of the universe that surrounds us, a thought in that fabric of existence can produce a feeling. That thought is produced from the electrochemical reactions that take place in our bodies that's stimulated by an input from somewhere. So consequently, you can have a feeling that gives rise to a thought and a thought that gives rise to a feeling. It's not important which one does what. What is important is maintaining control over what happens between the little block that we'll call feeling, thought, and behavior. Okay. Now, I've mentioned in the prior episodes that you have approximately a quarter of a second or less to intercept a behavior that is catalyzed from a thought or a feeling. Now, that's a pretty short period of time. And very oftentimes, that's why you see people just overreact. Something happens and boom, just like that, they do something, they say something, and they regret it, or maybe it's just an absolute brilliant statement and observation. Either way, the objective here is to manage the experience that arises from a behavior. Now, this is really important, and I've not heard anybody else really teach this, and I'm sure there is somebody out there, I just haven't found them, because it is on the one hand somewhat new and insightful. On the other hand, it almost seems obvious, right? If you go back to some of the scriptural texts that are out there, you'll find various phrases and philosophies and verses and things that allude to this. Be slow of tongue. Okay? Being slow of tongue means what? It means controlling your reaction or response to a thought that is given rise by a feeling, or vice versa. So there is sound philosophy out there to back up what I'm going to be sharing with you today. But in the context of mindset, in the context of defining your code of living, it is something that is simply not taught that often. It's out there. Because I derived this from doing research on work that was done way back in the 1960s. And at that time, there were some researchers who were trying to identify how fast does a thought move through your mind and produce an action. In our case, we're calling this a behavior. And that's where they came up with this number, less than a quarter of a second, from the time that feeling or thought bubbles to the top to the point where a behavior is likely to occur. So I don't want to go over that in a repetitive manner, but I want to make sure that we understand this, that you understand that you have the option to control the consequences that occur in your life by simply slowing down your reaction and or response to a stimulus. Now, the difference between a reaction and a response. A reaction is something there you may not have control over. In other words, something happens and you react to it. A reaction is more of an emotional response that is absent of considerable thought prior to the behavior, if you will. What we seek to do as entrepreneurs is to manage the experience of life by controlling our thoughts, therefore controlling our feelings, recognizing our feelings for what they are. They are signals from the greater intelligence that we need to pay attention to. We need to analyze them, understand them, and work with them to control and vector our thoughts in a congruent manner with what we want to achieve in our lives. That thought, that feeling, then gives rise to a behavior. And by controlling the thought, understanding the feelings, and managing those accordingly, we thereby create the behavior that we want. And that behavior creates the consequences that we want. The behavior and the consequences that are congruent with our purpose and vision will get us where we want to go faster, and in a way that allows us to achieve our purpose and vision exactly how we so desire, in a controlled manner where we are in charge of our life. Your code of life and living is uniquely you. You are the one who defines it, who lives it, who refines it, and takes it forward into life and teaches others. So this is a critical point. Now, here's a little bit of philosophy taught to me by one of my mentors, Sean Murphy. Sean G. Murphy, by the way. There's a lot of Sean Murphys out there. There's only one Sean G. Murphy that I know. But here it is. Every moment of every day, you have the option of choosing joy or choosing misery. In the Christian New Testament philosophy, you have the option of choosing life or choosing death. It's the same concept. To choose joy is to choose life. To choose misery is to choose death. Now that might sound just a little brutal, but it's absolutely true. For if you are of a mind and of heart to choose joy, then when you analyze the thought and the feeling that are coming across your mind and heart, you will choose to control that in a way that creates an experience of a behavior and a consequence that produces joy. Broad category, meaning fulfillment, happiness, the things that matter most to you. Now, the more you do that, the more your subconscious mind recognizes that's the way we're going to live. We're going to live in joy, and we're going to reject misery. So we're going to reject all the thoughts, all the things that are running down there in that 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day being processed through our mind. We're going to filter those through the filter of joy. We will pass those which are joy, and we will reject those which are misery. Now, keep in mind that your brain really operates in a bimodal method. In other words, it's always looking for patterns to be able to correlate the consequences and behaviors into something it recognizes, into something that it knows can categorize. If it doesn't see anything it can categorize, it's seeking to protect you. So that's when the fight or flight response may kick in. You'll feel anxiety. You'll feel like you need to run. You'll feel like something is dangerous, or an emotion along those lines. That's simply because you ventured into new territory and there isn't a pattern that is being recognized quickly enough to intercept those types of negative feelings. And that's okay. You just need to be aware of them. So your mind isn't going to lead you into disaster. It's going to keep watching out for you. So don't worry about that. But filter life through the filter of joy. So this is basic philosophy. And it's absolutely essential that you come to grips with the fact that a negative mind will produce negative results. The universe is going to hand you pretty much what you ask for. If you're in vibration, if you're in a frequency of joy, frequency of abundance, the frequency of the creative plane, as Wallace D. Wattles refers to in The Science of Getting Rich, then you are operating in a mode where you are receptive to the positive elements of life, the possibilities that exist in the universe, and the prospects of joy and happiness and fulfillment. With that said, your behaviors will now reflect that, which will produce the consequences that are drawn to you to reinforce that which you desire, your purpose and your vision. So that's the essence of behaviors and consequences. And being aware of it is critical. Now, I can't tell you how many times that I have talked to people and coached people about mindset, where this is an area that seems so obvious, but is so difficult for them to practice. They say it's not easy to control your thoughts. Very true. It's like anything. It's like riding a bicycle. You get on a bicycle, one of the first things you're going to do is crash and burn. I don't know about you, but when I started riding a bicycle, it was my brother's bicycle, and it was a big Schwinn bike, and it didn't have training wheels. I got on that thing, kind of pushed it up to the steps, got up on the steps, crawled on it, pushed away, and crashed and burned. But it wasn't long until I was jumping over ditches and doing all sorts of acrobatics with a very old bicycle at a very young age. And the same is true of controlling your thoughts. In the beginning, there's going to be a lot of noise going on in your mind. You haven't disciplined yourself to manage and control your thoughts. It's a process. You do it by being aware, number one. Number two, meditation. At least an hour a day is advised. Some people recommend 2, but it's best to do it in the morning and do it at night to get your thoughts under control, to program your day and to program your sleep, your mind, so that it can work for you overnight. But in so doing, you become aware of your thoughts. You start to train your mind to focus on that which is important to you, important to the world, because your mindset, your code of life and living, is what makes your life. And your life is what makes an impact on this world. So this section of our code of living and code of life, this thing called attitude, is absolutely essential. That's why we're spending so much time on it. To understand the mechanics behind it is to be aware of how to create an attitude that is absolutely serving of you and humanity. Okay, so that's where we're going to leave it today, and then we're going to move on. So choose joy, reject misery, control your behaviors, create the consequences that reinforce the positive things in your life that take you forward to where you want to go. Be aware of your feelings and thoughts, and understand that your beliefs and values can be changed. They can be programmed. They can be aligned to be congruent with your purpose and vision. It's a matter of repetition, of practice, of awareness, of discipline. So that's the final episode in the attitude module. So just to recap, we have covered the 3 Ds. That was dream, desire, and decision. We've had a kind of a introductory discussion on purpose, but that's where we're going to be going here very shortly. And we've talked about attitude, this all-important thing that gets out of our way or gets in our way, our choice. So where we're going to be going next? Well, next we are going to be talking about the subject of purpose. Now, why? We talked about purpose when we were talking about decision. When you have your desires identified and you have cataloged them and written them down, those that have an emotional significance to you, those were pointing towards your purpose in life. Now, what we discussed back then was understand that they are the seeds of purpose. Those seeds are not yet the fruit of your purpose. They are merely the seeds. So by understanding that those desires point you in the direction of the harvest of your purpose, you at least were able to make a decision understanding that these desires and the emotions that went with them were the beginning of a grand purpose. But you needed to make a decision. And sitting down and delaying that decision by trying to craft an absolutely perfect purpose wasn't going to happen, for the very reason that you were overthinking it if you tried to do that. You have to go with your emotion, because that emotion is speaking from your heart and your mind, and it's saying, this is the direction of your life. These are your desires. You can change them later, but at this moment in time, make a decision. Choose your desires, choose joy, move forward. So you had a nascent purpose, a kind of a youthful purpose that was generating, being born at that point. Then we brought the attitude discussion into place. Now, why did we do that again? We did it because we needed to bring that to the fore only after you had made the decision and that you were emotionally engaged and that you saw the benefits of achieving the purpose and the vision that would ultimately be more clarity later, to achieve more clarity later, to be defined later. And then the attitudes, now that we've understood and we know that we can manage and control them and create the experiences in life that move us forward, now it's time to start talking about purpose. So that's where we're going to go next. Purpose leads to vision. Now, once in a while, vision can lead to purpose. It's kind of like thoughts and feelings. It can go the other way. But generally speaking, purpose will precede vision for reasons that you will learn in our next episode. So the next episode, we're going to talk about purpose. What is it? How do you design it? Is it okay to change? How do you stay on track? How do you stay on course? So that's what we'll be covering. All right, well, thank you for those who tuned in live, and thank you for those who are watching the video after the fact. It's my pleasure to teach you this, the code of living, code of life. This is something that is going to take you well into the future to create a wonderful lifestyle, to make an impact on the world, and create the options and choices that allow you to make this place that we live on, this terrestrial ball, a better place for one and all. All right, well, once again, you've been watching Entrepreneurs Without Limits, our sessions on the code of life and living. I'm Dana Scranton, your host and your founder. And get out there and live without limits. live life on your terms, go make a difference, make an impact. We'll see you in the next episode.